So the topics we're going to cover today, CAA, NRC, and a bit of history and other things too, which are somewhat interrelated from many angles, and you will see why they are interrelated. We'll come to CAA and NRC from a historical perspective. Let's visit our history a little bit and a true perspective of history as well. Not just what has been taught to us, but also a lot of things have been hidden from us and or not quite brought to surface as much. So there's a quick agenda here. I'm just going to skip over this slide here. Let's go through independence of India time frame. So we all know how independence of India. We read a lot about this history from 1957 through 1857 to 1957 time frame. How things went. We kind of been told in the schools. But there are a few important things that are very key to remember. That the broader India, at least during 1857 onwards, was from some parts of Afghanistan had also community Hindus, everybody living, Muslims, everybody living together, all the way through Myanmar, and through independence process. All people believed that the freedom fighters who are fighting for independence and everybody fighting, they'll all get us freedom, and we'll be one big nation, we'll be one big country, and we'll all have freedom, we'll all have the luxury of enjoying the independence and away from this British slavery and other things as well. But as the independence came around, you all know during the time frame how we got divided into many countries, into 3-4 countries essentially. So just before the independence happened, just go through that time frame. The people who were living in various regions, let's say if I was ever living in Pakistan or some parts of, let's say, Bangladesh, I would think that yes, things are going great, people are working hard, we are also fighting alongside with them. As independence comes along, we'll all have that enjoyment essentially. But in that time frame, the whole movement of Jinnah and his colleagues started, where they begin to conceptualize the idea of Pakistan, the idea of a separate nation, and they demanded to the British that because Britishers took away India from Mughals, when they give independence back, they should give it back to them first. So they should give the entire region to Muslims first, and then comes down to anybody else essentially. That was the theory being put forward. In that time frame, one Mr. Ghulam Muhiyuddin Bakht came along. Anybody know this guy? Don't Google it. If you know, just tell me. Ghulam Muhiyuddin Bakht was born in Makkah, and he was in India, living in India, and active part of Islamic movement and Congress as well. He proposed a theory of not just Pakistan, supported theory of Pakistan, but also said that there should be a concept of how do we keep it sustainable, how do they keep it working, and how can make sure that whoever comes to Pakistan are safe, Muslims are safe in India as well as Pakistan. They were thinking about how to make sure that Muslims are safe everywhere. It doesn't matter for Hindus, but that's fair. But then there was another part of the theory where they were pushing forward. So this Mr. Ghulam Muhiyuddin Bakht put a proposal to the committee that as when Pakistan is formed, keep Hindus there as well. And if there's any trouble to Muslims in India, we will kill those Hindus in Pakistan. So we'll hostage them, and that's called as a hostage theory, the hostage population theory. And that was the initiation of Ghulam Muhiyuddin Bakht. And he said that when independence happens, keep Hindus in whatever regions we get, and they are under gun essentially. If anything happens to Muslims in Pakistan, in India, there'll be a retribution to the people, Hindu people in their region that they control. So this theory was embedded pretty deeply, and as in time came of independence, uh, you know what our father of nation said, that oh my dead body, that let's not get divided our country, and it will only happen if I die. I will not let it happen. Essentially, he gave assurances to people that don't worry, stay where you are, nothing will happen. We'll be all one country. Don't worry about it. And he being a core part of country and Congress, we all know that Congress gave in, and they said independence is fine and division is fine, because I want to get independence as soon as possible. I want to become prime minister as soon as possible. So sooner I become prime minister, sooner I'm more powerful. So whatever understanding is fine. Let's just divide is fine. So there are some people who accepted division, including Gandhi, and there was no dead body. But point is that he gave away the division of the country. Now during this time frame, you should remember a few things happened. Of course, from 1945-46, when this movement of Pakistan grew, there was a lot of killing of people, of Hindus in people living in both Bangladesh and Pakistan. Um, and if you think about the genocides in India, we haven't been told about genocides. Many of you live in or have grew up in southern part of India. How many of have you heard of Mopla genocide, for example? Any raise of hands? Mopla genocide, for example, right? So Mopla genocide happened in the Kerala region, and if you remember a word in history you read about called the Khilafat movement. Khilafat, the word khilaf means opposition. Now, if you go back and really read about it, it was not Khilafat, it was Khalifat movement. It was reworded to make it look like it's against the British. Khalifa movement, which is even happening today in Syria, is the same movement started in 1920s, 1910s in Turkey. And this movement is really saying establishing Islam all over the world, that the new Khalifa is coming, just like Syrians believe right now that a new Khalifa is a new Khalifa and the whole world will be Islam. That movement also started in 1910s. And that movement in Turkey was still called Khalifa movement. But our leaders changed that so that they can protect the movement in India also and support the movement. They changed that to Khilafat. And Khilafat means to be opposition of British, which is not what they were all about. They were in opposition of everybody who is not Muslims. So in the biggest, strongest part of the movement happened in India was in Kerala, northern Kerala region, in the Mopla region, essentially. That's where the Mopla Muslims lived. And they all got brainwashed, and those people began to kill Hindus. There was a major massacre of our brothers and sisters in that region. And so much so that there was nobody to go and take the dead bodies either. Villages and villages of people were massacred. Because one side, our leaders said that ahimsa, don't attack back, everything is fine. They are brothers and sisters, everything is fine. While in that calmness, the Khilafat movement of today was exact same philosophy even then, took over. And whatever you heard the stories in what happens in Syria and how people who were even slightly non-believers, how they were attacked. These were totally unbelievers. Hindus were totally unbelievers of Islam. So you know what happened in Mopla area, huge massacre. But our collective psyche, we tend to forget this history very quickly. Within another 30 years, which is in 1945 onwards, there was a major massacre happening in the region of Bengal. In Bengal, there was systematic 5-6 years long instability and major atrocities on Hindus living in the area, especially during the division, the division partition of India. And many of you kind of know about this, but let's crystallize that very well, that what really happened. So in 1946-47 time frame, the theory and the idea of direct action plan by Jinnah took over. Jinnah said that if you don't give me my country, we'll have direct action. Direct action means nothing it means nothing but killing Hindus, killing people. Simple. There's no other meaning. We will kill Hindus who are minority in our region. We'll just kill them. That's what exactly it meant. It was not just a blackmailing tactic by him, but he also wanted to establish Islam. He was saying to British, like, give it to me, the whole control to me. The whole country would be under pre-Mughal, like Mughal kind of reign again. But of course, that didn't have to happen because there was another power play, and we wanted to have another leader on our side wanted to become prime minister. So end of the day, they divided the country, and direct action plan actually took place. So when the country was divided, they wanted to keep some population in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, East and West back then, so that they can have this, the hostage population theory applied very well. And Mr. Bakht, we told about earlier, he now changed his name during that time frame. His name now is Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Do you remember Maulana Abul Kalam Azad? Anybody waving hands? So this Mr. Bakht now changed his name to Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. This person changed his name 4 times in his life. Born in Makkah, a Maulana's job, Maulana title and job is to convert people to Islam. That's their job. That's what they call Maulanas. They are not Maulana for nothing. So as you know, the independence division happened, and people, we also read stories and movies and everything that how people were killed and so on and so forth. But essentially, a lot more people were killed in these countries. When independence happened in 1947, in the census, there was a huge population of Hindus lived everywhere, including Pakistan. 26% of population of Pakistan was minorities, out of which 23.5% was Hindus back in that census in 1940s. And those people believed in MKG that as independence happens, we'll be fine. We don't have to move. Even during independence, there was a suggestion given to people that stay where you are, stay where you are, stay where you are. Don't come here. People who came to Delhi running from, for example, the West Pakistan, it was a cold winter. People who just somehow saved their lives reached Delhi, and many people who wanted to live in some buildings, some houses, they were asked not to live in mosques, not to live in any Muslim houses, even they are empty, because they don't belong to them. So sorry about the screen jumping on me. There was an unction done by MK Gandhi that if you live in Muslim houses, which even they're empty, don't live there. That's not your house. You go back to Pakistan where you came from. Go and die there, but don't come here. You better die in Muslims' hands, but don't come here. In Mopla genocide, it was Gandhi who promoted Khilafat. The Khilafat movement was promoted by MKG. If you go and read the history, the whole idea of Khalifa becoming Khilafat was his idea. So you got the background about what happened during independence and how the various genocides were being changed the names into. And we never read about Mopla because even the historians who talk about it, they were put down. Including Savarkarji, for example, he wrote books on Mopla. You should read that book. It's a historical book. Don't take Savarkar the way people are painting him. Read about him. You know, I'm an educated person. I don't live in 7th century. I want to live in 21st, 22nd century. I don't want to be bogged down in religionism and everything. I'm not. But if you read about it, you should know the truth and fact. That genocides happen in India every 20, 30 years in massive numbers. And they are hiding every single bone, every single skull under the carpet. We are not being told. Even in our culture, if something happens in our family, bad things, someone's death, to the kids, we don't tell them. We kind of hide and protect them. We don't tell them truth. That's kind of our culture. So we ourselves are going away from trying to not hear about the death of the past. So the historians, they know exactly how we are. Some historians purposefully want to hide it under the cupboard because that's where the damage to their parties may come. And I'm not a partisan person, but point here is that we should know the truth about what happened during independence. After independence, two people met, Nehru and Liaquat Ali. In my slides, I'm showing you, and they formed a trustworthy symmetry in this case. And Atul says in trustworthy question mark because it wasn't trustworthy. It's a sarcasm here. So Nehru Liaquat met and they made a pact and they said that look, we have many Hindus living in Pakistan, we have many Muslims living in India. We should protect our minorities mutually. Let's sign a pact. We'll each responsibly take care of our minorities as well. We'll not hurt them. We'll in fact take care of them and empower them. Nehru knew really well. He has seen Jinnah from his childhood almost. They've studied together in London together, and they knew Muslims very well too. Nehru knew that no matter what they sign, Hindus can't be safe. But they still signed this. Liaquat Ali said, yeah, sure, we'll sign it. Yep, here's the signature. Yeah, your Hindus will be safe in Pakistan. Population of 23% Hindus or 26% minorities of Pakistan and Bangladesh together. Today, the percentage population of minorities, especially Hindus in Pakistan is less than 1.3%. From almost quarter of the population, 1/4 of the population being Hindu, to about 1.3% in a much older census data of Pakistan. Old. They haven't done census in some time, by the way. They've been postponing census in Pakistan because nobody knows the real truth. Answer my one question in your mind. How do you get rid of 1/4 of your population in such a time? How do you do that? Second question. Do we or do we not have a responsibility? Because we become independent country, we become lucky because we lived in a certain region, not other side of the border, and some people who fled, they had resources to flee. Some people did not have any resource to flee. They were living in mountains. They were living in far remote places. They were told by local leaders to stay here. For the hostage population theory to be true, they were kept there. And a lot of people believed that Gandhi will do something. They had belief on this guy who said that on my dead body, that he'll come and solve this for him. They believed something will happen in a true way. Nothing happened. They, over years, got killed, converted, killed, raped, everything between those two. That's the only way you can lose them. While population of minorities in India grew. We are proud about that. Many of us are proud about that. Great. It grew from 6-7% to 15-17%. And today's census, we don't even know what real numbers are. But reality is that we, through secularism and other concepts, our Hindu value concept mainly, we live and let people live theory. We all did very well and flourished. While in Pakistan and Bangladesh, it was bad. 1950s was bad for Hindus in Pakistan, both Pakistan, East and West. And during the war of Bangladesh, during 70s, there was a major massacre of Hindus, genocide. Biggest genocide of Hindus in the recent time happened in that time frame. During the war, they thought every Hindu is a traitor, and they killed so many Hindus in Bangladesh. Let me ask you this. If somehow the place I lived became Pakistan, in fact, the place I was born in Gujarat, in Kathiawar, Junagadh, Amreli area, that was going to Pakistan. It was already kind of decided by Nehru when he signed off that take it, yeah, whatever. Just make me a PM as soon as possible. But if you want to take it. Headache le jao. But Sardarji fought and he played, and he said, no, Kathiawad has only a king who is Muslim, small population of Muslims, not going to Pakistan. No way. And did not. So yours truly is talking to you here in a nice manner. I would have been dust. I would have been in the dust right now if I was in Pakistan. And this is not emotional story. This is a story for a lot of people like us. Like what could have happened as part B. So this symmetry never took place. This is the roots of CAA and NRC. The people, we have responsibility towards people around there. It's a long, old responsibility. This is nothing about any random person in the world being suffered if you take him back. We already have a channel for that. But this is a special channel that then there was a need of where we are heading here. Now, during independence, it's also important to know what happened to Kashmir, right? We will talk about that Kashmir. If you have any question on Kashmir, let me know. I'll jump to some of the slides there. But let's go through CAA and NRC topics to begin with. So, what is CAA? Why is CAA needed, right? And what does the CAA Gazette say here? Now, before we kind of go deeper into the exact verbiage, this is actual official Gazette of CAA. You can read through if you would like. But it's important to know that to come to India and get Indian passport after independence, there are great channels available. You can apply through the normal channel. Anybody can apply. Even if you are a Muslim living in Pakistan, you can apply, and many people have applied. In very recent times, some renowned people have gotten into India and got Indian passport, and now they are living in India. The singer Adnan Sami, from Pakistan, applied for migration to India. Over the process, he followed the process. He came to India. Now he's Indian. Now he's Indian Muslim. Great. Why not? That channel has never been closed. That channel is still open today. If somebody ever says that, oh, if you are Muslim, you can't come to India anymore. Not true. Not at all. What CAA does is that people who are under tremendous pressure of this atrocities and persecution just because of the religion, not the word, just because of the religion, if they're under persecution, they can get a fast track way to come to India, get Indian passport. Just a fast track. It's not handover. Instead of longer wait, we cut down the wait by about 5 years. That's all that's happening. We are not changing any of the channels. All channels to apply for Indian citizenship is still open. This is technical lingo, and this is true. This is actual what Gazette says. This is actually what even happens on the ground as well. That if they want to apply for Indian citizenship from a neighboring country, they can still do it. But for certain people who are under this persecution, and let's agree on persecution. There's a tremendous persecution happening. 23% become 1%. What proof do you want? Like, what proof do you want? Do you want pictures and videos? Do you think there's a camera sitting there when somebody's being killed in Pakistan? They'll come to you. A few videos have surfaced still. Somebody must have leaked from somewhere. But that's just the smallest tip of the iceberg, what is happening in Pakistan or in Bangladesh. You might see videos. If you don't have, happy to send you some videos about recent situations where how people being killed in very recent here as well, where they burned like 3 weeks ago. They burnt houses of very poor Hindus, and kids were burnt alive. Kids you can put in your arms. Nascent kids were burnt alive in Pakistan. Poorest people. These people don't have even a bicycle to travel to another village. They have no resources to come here. So our responsibility is there. We cannot just say, okay, now we got freedom, I'm going to close my eyes and look somewhere else. I mean, that's not who we are. That's not who we are. We cannot just look away, especially people who really depended on us to be together. And because of some leaders chose to say, division is fine as long as you make me a PM tomorrow, I'm happy. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and march flare a flag, and I'm the PM. Done deal. So people who were in a hurry to become leaders and rulers, they compromise everything on their way, and so many people have died because of that. Millions people. If you look at the Jewish genocide, the word they talk about, and they have done good job in talking about it in the world. We all know it very well by various names. We kind of know all the facts and all the history channels filled with them. Hindus have faced the largest genocide even in recent history. And if you look at the entire history of 1,000 years, it's incomprehensible that the largest genocide that we have faced. If we don't understand this true history, we are doomed to disappear. So CAA verbatim says that if the people of these three countries, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, who are Hindus, Sikh, Buddhists, Jain, Parsis, or Christians, they can get a faster citizenship to India. Just faster. It doesn't mean handover. It is not blocking anybody. It's not blocking Muslims. It's not blocking any part of Muslims, Islam. If somebody is Ahmadiyya or Rohingya, they can still apply to the normal chance that's available to them. This is just an amendment saying that have some level of faster process. Now, why was that required? So now we will go back to Kashmir in this case. So when the independence happened, many people, whoever could, they ran around and flee from Pakistan to India. But in that time frame, in Kashmir, the Kashmiri rulers, the chief minister, then prime minister, there was another prime minister in Kashmir for a few years. They knew that they needed the cleaning people who can clean their houses and toilets and the streets. They need them. So they asked many of these people living in Pakistan and India also to come to Kashmir area and serve them. They'll be given jobs. Okay, these people had no concept of nationality and passports that we today have. Then people just lived in the place they lived. There was no idea of having a passport came much later for us. So for the sake of seeking jobs and work, there was trouble also that they all came to Kashmir to actually do the cleaning job. And I don't believe in casteism. They belong to so-called cleaning caste, but as they moved into Kashmir, they begin to, of course, do their job, and population grew. But remember what happened in time of independence and during the Constitution of India being written, there was a lot of fraud happened in that process. So I'll tell you a quick story on that. Ambedkar ji doing a great job in writing the Constitution, and there was a committee, a constitutional committee, who was writing the Constitution. During this time frame, somebody came to meet with Nehru. So Sheikh Abdullah came to meet with Nehru and asked that, hey, we want to add this thing into Constitution. We want to add this chapter into Constitution. So Nehru looked at that and said, yeah, go and talk to Patel and he'll take care of it. I'll write to him. So we went to Patel and asked Patel that this should be added. Patel said, no way, this is not happening. The ask was Article 370. So article is essentially said that if there is any people living in Kashmir, Kashmiris, right, they can go and live in any part of India, and they have the same freedom. They can buy land, they can do everything usual. But anybody else, any other part of India, people living there, they cannot just come into Kashmir and buy land or get married to people there and retain citizenship. There are a few restrictions. Number two, let's say a woman of Kashmir gets married to a boy in India, she will lose her complete rights. She will not be able to call herself a Kashmiri anymore. She has to go to India and live there, but she cannot have her property rights transmitted to her family anymore. Things like that were there in that 370, and that foundation of that. The foundation was that they can have their own prime minister, they can have their own state level constitution, and they are free to do that. So they have broad powers being asked in 370. So they went back to Nehru and said, we got a nay, we got a rejection from Patel. So they said, well, then don't worry, here's my letter, go give it to Ambedkar, he'll take care of it. So then Sheikh goes to Ambedkar, and Ambedkar reads the draft and reads the letter and says, you are asking me to backstab my fellow Indians and tell them that they have no rights in that land, but you have all the rights here? I can't do this injustice. He rejected. He threw the paper away on his face. He actually crumbled the paper and threw that this is not happening. Third time came from Nehru back and met the whole committee, the committee of constitution being written, and this committee anonymously together rejected that this is not happening, this is not right. Then finally Nehru fourth time said that, look, I'm going to travel this time to UK, and in my absence, my deputy chief prime minister, he will not let me down, and I'm asking him to make sure this happens. So he essentially forced Patel, who convinced these people, and this was discussed in the committee and was entered as Article 370. But these people knew what to do. They added a word in that article that there was no word like that called, it's a transient and a temporary provision. Transient and temporary words were added. Transient means this can be changed, this can be formed into something different, and temporary means can be removed. And also he included way to remove it, and the way to remove it was that the President of India can remove it, or even the democratic process, which is Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha process, can remove this article or change the article. So transient and temporary was added into the topic. But after the 370 was accepted, that gave a leeway, open room for the state of Jammu Kashmir to make rules of their own. They could. The rule was that what they did was this: they made them sign in the constitution that since 1944 to onwards, anybody who came to Kashmir, even before independence of India, anybody who came to Kashmir don't automatically have rights on Kashmir. It's Kashmir rules who decide who will be the citizen of Kashmir. This was done because during 45, 46, 47, these cleaning people came to live in Kashmir. They wanted to exclude them from citizenship. It was a deeply thought conspiracy. So when these people begin to multiply over the time, of course, everybody did. They never received a right to buy a house. So people who clean, they were poor then. They still remain poor because they cannot buy a piece of land to build a house. They have to literally live in tents on the roadside in Kashmir. They had no rights. They never received any rights in Kashmir because the law itself had deprived them of any rights. So after independence, many of people who came to Punjab, Gujarat, or other places, they all became automatically Indians and all good. People who went to Kashmir, even till today, until this CAA came through, they had no rights. They cannot vote for local assemblies. They cannot vote for sarpanch, village level elections. They have none of those rights. Not just that, there was a story where a young girl who studied into medicine came to India, mainstream India, and studied, wanted to go back to Kashmir and practice medicine. She was said, no, you can't practice. Only job you can do constitutionally is cleaning job. In the hospital, find toilets and clean them. That's your job. So that's what you can do constitutionally. That's what they wrote in the law. that these people, the only thing they can do is that. Now, Jai Bhim, Jai Meme, Bhim, these are the scheduled SC, ST, scheduled caste, low caste classification people. And now they're talking about Jai Bhim, Jai Meme. Show them the mirror. Show them the mirror and say, look, you're Jai Bhim, Jai Meme. And there are so many examples of the kind, what happens there. So these people now in lakhs, they have no rights in India. And there are other people who flee from Pakistan, India, in the last few decades. Even they were waiting for rights. So the CAA is designed to solve that, in a sincere attempt to solve that problem. Because those people who are waiting for rights, there should be some beginning to that atrocities that happen to the people. So, so that's what the CAA's inception is. That how can we save these people and give them the rights they deserve? Because without this, they can't go to normal schools. They cannot go to government schools and say, "Look, here's my citizenship." They were nobodies in this country. They can't buy properties. They can only do is labor in this country. We know very well in America and Canada. If you don't have work permit, if you are a illegal immigrant, it's a very bad state, because then you don't get the mainstream jobs, and then you can be paid in cash of $5 an hour, $3 an hour. You don't even know. So same thing is in India. So this is a way to solve that essentially. Now let's look at some questions. People begin to ask questions saying, "Oh well, this is discriminatory. This discriminates with Muslims." Even in USA, there are many lawmakers are saying, "Oh, this is discriminatory," and the things around that. Let's really understand this and dissect this. There's a law in America called Lautenberg Amendment Act of Refugees. This act is very similar to CAA, and it's been there for past 20 plus years. This law says that people living in Syria, and there's actually a language for that, in certain countries in that region, not people, any people, only Christians and Jews can get a faster green card, that's path to citizenship, in America. It's the same way CAA says if you are this broader set of religions, Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, the 6 religions covered there, they can get faster by 5 years. Here they handed over green card literally within days. If you're Christian of Syria and say, "I'm in trouble," and they can get it. Jew, "I'm in trouble," they can get here. But not Hindus, not Buddhists, none of those guys, just Christians and Jews of this region. That's called Lautenberg Amendment Act, an American system. Now, this law is okay, and it is okay. In reality, there is nothing discriminatory of this law. This law, discrimination to be understood very, very well here, and believers too, and followers too. So let's not really make them together similar here. So this is double standard. If any American lawmaker says, you should tell them that, do you know about the Lautenberg Amendment Act? And do you know that what does this pertain? And ask them, why doesn't it include Buddhists who also live in this area? Buddhists live in much farther region. They lived in much larger region of Asia, including Middle East. Why can't they be saved? Why whatever they're applying for India is why not? Why they can't apply to the same people in Syria? Now, is this really discriminatory? It is not. Even in America, this is not discriminatory. This is based on the democratic value that if somebody is being grouped together and being persecuted as a group, that group can be saved, no matter how you define the group. Group can be because you're believers into bicycles and they are being persecuted because they are bicycle lovers. It's wrong. They shouldn't do that, and those people can be saved. Or people who are, even in today's world, any belief system they have, some kind of club they belong to, and they're being persecuted because of that group, they can be saved. They can be taken into proper justice system. So here the group is defined as people who are being persecuted because they are not Muslims. And this is a true, very valid thing to do, essentially. So here's a quick slide on CA at a glance, and why CA is similar to Lautenberg Amendment Act, essentially. Here's the exact language of that. Adam Schiff is the congressman who brought this into the legislation, and it says that the Lautenberg Amendment Act served as a lifeline for over 2 decades to tens of thousands of Jewish, Christian, Baha'i, and other religious minorities flee Iran and former Soviet Union. Originally, it was just 2 religions; they extended later. But if you look at what we have CAA in India is very parallel to that. In fact, a bit more noble, if anything. It includes everybody, all the minorities that is possible in the region. So, well, all of you might already know, but let's just be very clear. This is not a law brought in, somebody like North Korean president, where there is no democracy. India is a democracy where people elect these people, our leaders, and they decide on these issues. And look at what happened in the lower house, upper house, and under president for the CAA. So in lower house, 311 said yes, 80 said no for this act. In the lower house, where in upper house, 105 people said yes, 105 said no in upper house, and then it passed president's scrutiny or his veto, his power as well, that this is a good law to go for. So this is not just coming from a dictator's book that this must be the law, but law has nothing wrong with it. It's a humane thing to do. And then even if you combine this with NRC, when NRC is a much older law that none of the recent government brought, it's written back in Gandhi's time, in Rajiv Gandhi's time. Even if a lot of people try to combine them together. Say, okay, let's come up with them and give you a story. No, it's not. They are two different things. And NRC's implementation is a totally different story. And the current government may have made statements about that, but if you mix them in their convenient way, make some stories, there is no end to the fake stories you can make out of this. But the truth is that designed for simply saving people who are in trouble in some of this region. Now, let's not forget that upper house is where Rajya Sabha. The current government doesn't have a majority. When they passed, they did not have a majority. They would have failed in passing this bill. But a lot of people, there are 23 different parties represented in this house. They still got a yay in 125 versus 105. It's because people actually understand this issue, and that's why they supported this. So again, if somebody says, "Oh, just because you're majority, you just take care of, you just rule," first of all, why not? That's the democratic process. That's exactly why we make people win. So let's not try to make it a mobocracy and let mob be deciding when you already have democracy in place. Democracy is a process of where you vote for the people and let them decide, instead of now, because mob is burning a bus, so you should take away CAA and then approve that they can do this in the future. Are we going to say, oh, that's the right way? You know what? Upper house, lower house, shut them down. Let the mob decide. Whoever burns more number of buses, they're right. And they can decide what law should stay and not stay. Is that what we want? Is that what we are after? Is that democracy? No. That's called mobocracy. Nobody will be safe in that mobocracy. And that established mobocracy right now, mobocracy should be definitely condemned every single moment. If they're having peaceful march and communication, it is allowed in our constitution. In fact, our government is most lenient in that. So we in Seattle, myself and other people, I led that. We did here marches in Seattle in late last year, supporting CAA, for example. To get that permission, we had to do paperwork and file some fees. Democracy. But we had to get permissions. Where can we stand? Where can we walk? What many hours? How many people? Fees and our information, my ID card. In India, they blocked major roads in Delhi for months without permit. They were allowed. India is the most lenient democracy. If they still complain, they want to just complain. There is no end to it. In here, try blocking a freeway or a major road for 30 minutes and see what happens. 30 minutes, not 30 days. This is 90 days they blocked the major road in Delhi. And same people on the other corner, same people, same leaders, they burned buses, they killed cops, they destroyed properties, they threw stones, they invaded into people's freedom, they scared people off from the area for the true scare. So we should decide what is that we as individually, that what is that we want? We want mobocracy or we want democracy? Nothing is perfect, but democracy is what we should go after. Otherwise, we are doomed. So this is just to give you background that how it went through the process. By the way, also it passed Supreme Court scrutiny. Lots of PILs are submitted to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, I don't find any problem with this. Supreme Court, right? Don't forget that some people believe that just because you become prime minister, Supreme Court reports to you and the big houses report to you, the president report to you. No. The Constitution has pillars, and in the current situation more so, that the Supreme Court has been much more critical of the government than in the past. In fact, they've been truly independent body. Anyway, Supreme Court said nothing wrong in CAA either. So what is the objection? We don't understand. Normal people, if you study CAA properly, it's the most human law of our century, our last century. Last 100 rolling years, most human law passed in the region was CAA. Most humane. It should be expanded, because this is about, this should have passed like in 1950s, not today. It's 70 years too late. Sure, but it's still needed. Millions of people have died, have been killed. They could have been saved if CA was a law earlier, and it's still needed. There's still people living. There's still people who are minorities in there. My Sikh brothers, Hindu brothers, Parsi brothers, they're all being killed today. So let me take a quick pause. It's been about, how long has been talking? Hour and a half. I want to make sure that we kind of have some questions from you at this point, and also discuss any other aspects of the history of NRC and things like that as well. And a lot of people argue that, oh, NRC requires 15 documents and it doesn't accept passport, doesn't accept this and that. Not true. The official gazette of NRC, by the way, NRC is only in one state right now, which is Assam. And that state gazette clearly states any of the following are accepted. Any, not all. Any. A or B or C, well, no, or D or E. Either you have 1951 NRC document or you have electoral rolls of the 24th March 1971. That's huge. You are part of electoral. That means you have your forefathers have voted. You're good. In fact, the Citizenship Act automatically intook these people's name. They didn't even been asked. Their names were automatically copied and pasted from electoral rolls into accepted citizens, accepted NRC of of Assam. If they have land records, tenancy records, let's say my father's name is in some small land, good enough. If my father's name, my family name has some land in property and has records, it's been there for the last 30 years, 40 years, you are no question being asked. If your citizenship certificate, of course, you're good. You have permanent resident certificate, you're good. Refugee registration card, good. Passport, good. LIC is good. Even any government issued certificates are good. Let's say they give you license, you already have good. Even they look at court cases. Let's say you had some court case in the government or something, you were part of the court case, but that means you are in the system and there's a record that you existed. You didn't come from Rohingya land someday. Proven, you're good. What else do you need? Like 14 documents, any of or. Now, if you don't have any of the 14 documents, first question is, who are you? Like, who are you? They even allow 3 witnesses. So there are 3 witnesses come and say, This Atul, I know him. He is in this country for some time. His parents, I know them. We are good. Three people just say verbally in front of a magistrate, they give affidavit, then that person is already given NRC. Now, if people can't even do that, other than no cooperative, they don't understand the right. Every nation has the right to make their own census. This is national registry. NRC is National Registry of Citizens. Every country has it. Nepal has it. Pakistan has it. Afghanistan has it. They were given a card as well. And we can't have it. Why? We are not a country. India can't have it. Why is that? Why is India can't have it? Why every country out there can have their own national registry? Why can't we have it? This is only registry process. This does not have any provision to kick out anybody. It doesn't say anything away from anybody. It's not that, okay, if you're not found a citizen, you'll be kicked out. No. Politicians may have made statements for making political scores. In reality, there is no such law or process in place to kick out these people through NRC. NRC law does not include that. Other law has other criminal background, people can be kicked out, things like that. But those laws already existed. That's not been touched. NRC itself is only saying that how do we do a national registry for citizens? This is required. Otherwise, our India's decision will be made by somebody else. Shouldn't we be making our decisions? Just like in America, people who are citizens, they can vote. What if in India, people who were not really citizens, came from nowhere, begin to vote and change your things? Is that accepted? So this question should be asked. So you look at the or part, even or, the second list of the documents, they can even present their father's birth certificate or bank records or electoral roll, ration card. So there are so many ways they can do it. If they can't produce any of these, question number one, who are they? Really, who are they? Right? The whole reason is that you want to identify people who are not from there. They are taking away resources that you have. Our country has resources. There is a lot of poverty. We are already stretched in resources. Do we want to invite all kind of people and come and say, sit here in the land, so I cannot grow it tomorrow? I won't be able to grow my stuff tomorrow. That's fine. Who are we to decide that? The people there who are already in a lot of trouble, they don't want more people coming there, and that's why there's a lot of confusion also in Assam, because Assam has said we already had this act by Gandhi. He did a very poor implementation. It was an open wound for them, so they are very sensitive to anything touching that. So some of them are protesting because they don't want that to be touched, but they don't understand, and media create that confusion purposefully. They think that NRC is bad for them. NRC is in fact good for them. So long story short, NRC has a longer history than CAA. It is an unrelated thing, and they cannot be combined together. One more thing about CAA is that CAA applies to anybody who came to India before a particular date. 2014 December 31st, before that date, whoever applied for citizenship in India, they are included right now in this current bucket. And that's been drafted to keep in mind the people who had come from Pakistan or have been troubled in Kashmir. They are the target of this law. There's nothing to do with NRC in this context. More important thing is that Supreme Court has asked the government to implement NRC in Assam. It's not government saying, hey, we will do it. Supreme Court has said, go do it. But don't forget that if you believe that to become prime minister, you rule everything, you don't. You don't rule it. And that's how it should be. He shouldn't be ruling everything. There should be independent bodies, and there still are. Supreme Court as independent body has asked prime minister to implement NRC in Assam. Population growth of minorities in this region. In India, it grew from 15% to 22%, while in Pakistan, it declined from 24% to 3.1% of total minorities. In fact, Hindus are less than 1.3% today. Not today, that's like census done a few years ago. If you do recent census, nobody really knows. Maybe it's much lesser than that. Recognition. All minorities and their ways are accepted. Muslims wanted to have their own personal law is granted in India. While in Pakistan, forget about it. In Hindu, Sikh marriages were not even accepted, recognized till 4 to 70 years. Until 2017, a law passed. Pakistan didn't even accept and recognize Hindu marriages. they never accepted them as legitimate marriages. They had no court records. They cannot keep track of who got married to whom and how many kids they have. Only their personal records, that's it. But there was no systematic way to keep track of that purposefully, so they don't have to give them resources and ration and things like that. Even in ration, they don't have the first right. They don't have right at all. In current COVID situation, ration being given, if the Hindu person comes, says, hey, it's not for you yet. This is only for Muslims right now. Next topic, leaders. Look at, compare them. How many minority community leaders we had in India? We have prime minister for minority community, a sixth prime minister for 10 years. Multiple presidents and vice presidents were minority Muslims. Hundreds of state heads over the years were Muslims and Christians and everything else. In Pakistan, 0 PM or president from minority community, 0 heads, leaders from minority communities in general. Administrative, same thing. LGBT is one topic we added here because somebody said in our that even LGBT is being discriminated in CAA. What? Where does LGBT come from in discrimination? It doesn't talk about sexuality or sexual orientation at all. It includes everybody. It just talks about religion or no religion also. So where is the LGBT coming from? I mean, there's so much of lies and fake news flying around. You should refine them and understand what is fake and what is not fake, and make that distinction in your brain. Don't just accept everything you read from any media houses or any social media, even in that way. Okay, so I want to now take questions from you. I know we have been spending a good amount of time right now here. If this is appropriate time, we can take some questions.
So, quick question. This is Devinder. So, what is the objection? What are people saying in objecting to both of these laws, the CAA and NRC? What is their point of view?
So, first of all, there is no structural objection because there is nothing wrong with it itself. So, objections, the most often objection is that, oh, this is a discriminatory towards Muslims, it's targeted towards Muslims. While this is simply saying that, look, if you are an Islamic country, the definition of this persecution is on the minorities being persecuted by the majority Muslim people, then Muslims, in this case, Muslims are not themselves victims of this issue. You are just actually the role of perpetrators. Not everybody does it, but it is because Islam is doing it. So if as an Islamic person, you cannot say I want to become part of CAA too. There'll be different laws for that. If you want a different law, let's talk about it. That I can say other people too. So then people object. Second thing, then why don't we include Uyghurs from China and somebody from Somalia or somewhere in Africa? Well, not one. Tell me one law in the world that can solve all world problems together. Then there'll be just one law in US Constitution. No more articles required. One law takes care of everything. You can't. Every article and every law has its focus and goal. And if there's more required, do in future. So instead of saying why not this, why not that, let's talk about what it is and what's the issue in that, instead of saying why not something else. There is no end to why not something else. So objections are either about saying that, oh, this is anti-Islamic, and we saw it here. So what is the law's main focus? How it's similar to many other laws in the world. And I'll give you an example of Lautenberg-Specter Amendment Act. It doesn't include Islam there because it logically doesn't make sense. It's pointless to say, okay, then you can come too. You're the guy who's killing them. You can come with your gun as well. Come on over. Makes no sense. So it is, and again, it's not like you handing over citizenship. They still go through the same process. Their process is shorter. They still have to prove many things that they have to prove anyway, but their process is shorter for CAA. We only give them a little bit of slack, and people object to it. And they can get away with the objection. That's amazing that how not even a single simple thing given to a Hindu name or a non-Muslim name is not being tolerated. And they talk about tolerance. Well, good question. Thank you.
So Seattle City passed this resolution and they accepted. So did they add in the resolution that now all the Muslims from Pakistan are welcome to be citizens of Seattle?
No, it's not. In fact, resolution has no real effect on either India, Pakistan, or even America in terms of the citizenship and immigration. It is just a resolution to politicize the issue. There is no real effect on it. Only effect I see is division in the community. The Seattle community, we live together. I have my co-workers who come from Pakistan and Bangladesh background. Now I sit with them in the meeting room and we have this corner thing in our mind bugging us because now it's been embedded, added to our mindset than before. Earlier, we as communities worked together and we were all fine. Now they are making this division in the community by talking about CAA and NRC and talking about this thing that's not really the concern here. So is that changing anything in terms of immigration of people into America? No. Is that changing anything on the ground here? No. Is that fixing a broken pipe on 3rd Avenue? No. You know, as a city, your goal is to help the city and fix issues in the city. Drugs, murders, broken water pipe on the 3rd Avenue example. And not about becoming a UN body and try to pass things that has no effect. Don't become a UN body overnight. You don't have resources to research the matter sufficiently to judge those things. You're only going to make it a political issue, and they did that. And this is happening in many cities in America where council members are passing resolutions against countries, against another democracy who has gone through the proper process of electing their leaders, and they made the right process to pass the law, similar to Lautenberg Amendments Act in this case. What's discriminatory about it? Victims are being saved, and victims are defined here in this case as non-Muslims, and it's a true fact that non-Muslims are being troubled in this country. There is no second thought to that. Ask anybody out there who is well read. They will agree that this is happening. Good question. Thank you.
Atulji, what is the relevance of December 2014 in CAA? Why?
That's a great question. So when you see a problem of a size, you want to solve it by piecemeal. Instead of saying, you know what, all of you come on over, and there's a big, huge, chaotic issue. India is very populous country already. And we have suddenly all sorts of people come up and try to show their proofs, becomes overwhelming for government. So the goal of that was to say, let's kind of make a cutoff so we can take care of first batch. And then as people perceive that that's a good idea, good thing to do, we can take second batch and things like that. So from what I read about it is that it's more like a phase approach, so that the consumption or digestion of people coming from these countries is made easier for the community living here as well. It shouldn't become a huge burden suddenly and there's a chaos. So to reduce chaos, that was the date thing given.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm calling in from Minnesota. Is it fair to say that the CAA gives protective treatment to people who are being persecuted, but at the same time, if there are people who have come in from these adjacent Muslim countries or come in at the present time and are seeking asylum or wishing to leave their home countries because they are being persecuted, even though they are Muslims, that this is still perfectly permissible? That's within the framework of the CAA.
Yes, so let me go dwell into that. CAA is an amendment to a larger act. That act already allows the Muslims to apply, and they do apply. I gave an example a few minutes ago. A few actors, few other people have come from Pakistan, and they applied for coming to India and become Indian citizenship because of similar, because they're being not treated well because of some whatever other reasons. They could apply, and some people applied just because they wanted to. They applied, and they got them. There are recent examples as well, and the past examples too. So the channels were never blocked of your normal process. It's like today, if somebody from Nepal or India or Sri Lanka wants to come to America and apply for green card, there's a process. They can apply. And so is that the process for people living, Christians and Jews of Syria coming to America. They can apply to, except the people coming from Syria, the Christian Jews, they can apply through Lautenberg-Specter Amendment Act, and they can be reviewed and say, yeah, you are a valid person from the region. You are given a faster green card. Here it is. So that does not block, the latter example does not block your normal channels for green card. It's valid. Same way, CAA is just an amendment to a larger act. Larger act already has provisions for them to come, and there's no provision being taken away. Okay. CAA does not take anything away from anybody at all. It only gives something to somebody. It does not say that with this law, you're out. No, it says that only you can get sooner. That's all. Mm-hmm. Because you have persecution situation in your country.
Oh, I that's the way I understood it after some local conversations, and I was very glad to have it confirmed by you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Only Hindu is just gives you a background.
I understand. I respect your language. I know what you mean exactly, but at least they should do that. I know what you mean is that at least they have better understanding. They have understanding. Don't think that they don't know. It's not a lack of education.
It's politics.
You believe that they don't have information and they're doing it? No. Who don't have information is maybe the local, the American-born people who have no context in India. They have lack of education. I understand that. But if you look at some of these people who came from Indian generations and second-generation Indians, they don't have information. That's not true. They choose not to go in that direction because that does not help them politically. That does not help them politically. That's why. Indian people vote from their mind. They don't say, let me ask the leader and say, who vote for this guy? Okay, vote for him. They don't follow that process. They are independent thinkers. That's not true for the communities. And if you say in favor of certain communities, they'll vote for you. And when the leader says, vote for this guy. So this is a vote bank politics too, where unfortunately, when a Muslim leader says that vote for this guy or this party or this person, the community vote, and they'll also collect a lot of funds. There's also money applied too. So there are reasons like that. That's my short answer to you. And you may have to do your own research to find out.
Hi, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm Shashi. My question is, for example, a lot of Asian, Indian Americans who are elected congressmen or congresswomen, they, without knowing the facts like you have, shared with us, just going and putting themselves on the television tubes by criticizing India. And the media just gives them a lot of, and the second part is, in India, the film stars are worshipped. Anything they say, people will, go attend rallies and, follow them blindly. And for example, I don't want to name this very well-known actress. She just showed up at JNU. This does not help to, educate the population of India and the young and the old and everybody, that what is CAA Act. So if you can, share some, your thoughts on it, I would really appreciate it. And I really thank you for doing, this, educating us.
Sure, thank you. I'll take, every group of people do certain things. There's a reason behind that. I can take care of a few of them and give you a quick address of that. So let's look at the personalities of Bollywood, the Bollywood film industry personality, and what they say and why they say things and what happens there. So you should understand the industry Bollywood and how it changed in 80s. In 80s, a huge amount of funding began to happen from ISI-based successful, or I guess people who made a lot of money from ISI in America. When America used to fund Pakistan, ISI people used to pocket the money and say we did the job. So ISI leaders began to use the money to fund movies in Mumbai, in Bollywood. And Dawood Ibrahim, many of the names like that, how they begin to fund movies. Huge funding and huge success began to happen. Bollywood grew as well, and they became a money machine by itself. And the money, of course, is ISI's made and the leaders made from Dubai, and they funded back. but with a distinction. They begin to select those actors and actresses who talk about them, who talk their narrative, and who are aligned with them. You would see how the demography just changed in Bollywood. There were good balance before in terms of what background they came from. I'm not a guy who talk about religion all the time, but if you look at that from that lens, you would see how the demography changed. People who are successful actors and actresses in Bollywood, and you can do your own study and see how you can see more of certain names come up and other names are suppressed, and how they even there when they come to public life and they talk about in politics, how the narrative begin to go in one direction. What I want to tell you in brief is that if there is an actor want to be successful in Bollywood, you cannot ignore these people writing checks from Dubai. They decide who will produce, who will direct, who will act, and who will do what dance. Let me stop there. My point is that if you see a Bollywood person saying something about something, think about what connection she has. Who's pulling the strings from above? There's a string being pulled. One thing we covered. Second is media houses. So after the communists failed in the time of World War II, the failed communists began to perpetrate into educational institutions over the world. They became part of libraries and institutions out there, and they began to slowly breed their mindset. What you see today is a result of that. Those seeds have become trees. So you will see that the worldwide left has come together, and the left has very communist mindset. So if you expect a Washington Post write good things about progress of Indians, don't expect that automatically. BBC, nope. All these left media houses, you can't expect anything, especially because people of our kind, we slept. We were busy making our next dollar. We never thought that the public life, the civil society is also an important part in our duty to make sure that it goes in the right hands. It stays neutral, it stays balanced, it's good for everybody. Now, every university, every institution has their people. They have the same mindset. They talk about higher things. They talk about very, very hi-fi stuff. Only talk about it, but the actions are opposite. Especially you ask questions about why other bodies doing certain things. Everything has a reason behind that, unfortunately. If you look at the media houses in Washington Post or New York Times, those guys, and many media houses like that, I'm not picking on one or two. All of them, the articles which are written about India, the false articles, the writers are sitting in Delhi. The authors are sitting in Lutyens, Delhi. They have a co-author, a non-Indian person sitting in America or wherever they are, or UK or France, wherever, and they together write a report. While the person sitting in India, Delhi, is sitting very close to a political party, likely Congress and the likes. It's a deeply political statement being made, and that brings the news worldwide and say, oh my God, what's happening in India? It's totally optics. It's all about giving a wrong impression of India every single time. When you look at the articles like that, research about the author, the article writer, and see what the articles person has written. They'll give you an idea of what they are historically doing. Only negativity, and lies, unfortunately. Journalism, the pillar of democracies, is crumbling. It's rotten. The pillar of democracy worldwide, one of the pillars is called media journalism. It's under challenge. It's a crumbling building, unfortunately. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
I have one question, Atul. So I just wanted to know, like, they are opposing CAA. There are so many things behind it. I don't know, like, why they are opposing. But actually, is there any factor? I mean, Rohingya factor that's the reason of opposing the CAA?
So there's a very rude answer to that question, unfortunately. The rude answer is that anything good happening to a non-Muslim is objectionable in India right now. It's like, why not me? Let's say I have 2 kids in my house, right? I have a boy and a girl, for example. Now, every time I give something to the girl, I give it to the boy. Boy says, I want it to. Boy is very demanding, I want it to, right? Now, once the girl is badly injured and she immediately needs a first aid, and I'm trying to help her, and the boy comes and says, stop her, don't give it to her, give it to me right now. I'm not injured, but give it to me, put me some right aid. What should I do? I should, just because he is being violent about his demands, I should just give him first and ignore her, who is under a lot of pain and needs the first aid right now?
We should give a priority who is injured, right? Already suffering from.
There's a priority to people who are actually in trouble.
Yes.
And people who are creating ruckus, not been proven yet, doesn't mean that they're making ruckus. There's democratic process to say that. Why didn't you burn 50 buses for this? What objection do you have to burn these buses? You killed so many people, destroyed so much property out there. You kill cops.
Yeah, right.
So simple answer to the question is that they can't tolerate anything good happening to anybody but themselves.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
Thank you.
There are many social media, inputs that are being received by the people, with the St. Paul city's, steps to make this resolution against India, CAA. How do we, in your view, how do we participate in other, change.org petitions? Is there any other way we can participate in this kind of resolutions now that we have some insights and more in-depth background on what CAA is and how we can provide more inputs to that?
Great question. Engage, educate. Not all are doing for political purposes. Some people don't know enough about the matter, and they're honest about it. If you educate them, there's a hope. So what you got to do is engage, talk to them, all the facts, the truth behind it, let them decide, give them the truth. You can only hope that they'll consume the truth and go from there. And tell them that there are many reasons not to go for this. Number one, under democracy, not your business, don't do it. Number two, your focus is in your city, don't become UN. Might sound insulting, but you have to put in such a way that tell them there is other bodies for that. There are bodies called UN does that part of analyzing other countries' laws.
Thank you.
May I offer one bit of insight as somebody who is struggling to try to understand this situation, and that's simply the following. That when you read the text of the CAA and you see all those religious groups that are clumped together and their life is being eased, and you see that the Muslims are not included, it is automatic, I think, for almost any American reader of that to see that as discrimination. And so what strikes me as being centrally important is to explain the thinking behind it, that this amendment is serving the interests of people who are under extreme pressure in their home countries, and that it is not changing the status of Muslims. That's staying, as you repeated for me, that is staying as it always has. It is extending a helping hand to people who are in acute danger. But you would never come to this conclusion by reading the text of the amendment, not unless you knew the background thoroughly, which American readers will not know. So my recommendation is to anybody who is having a discussion on this point to start with that assumption that the person you're talking to is going to see the amendment as discriminatory just because of the way it looks on paper without knowing any of the history. And so you first have to work on reversing that assumption.
That's so great point. Absolutely agree with you. It should be stressed that this is not taking anything away from anybody, including Muslims. They are not losing any channel, any right whatsoever. And if you notice, I stressed on that. That's the point you want to really convince to tell them that if you're reading this to be discriminatory with Muslims, it is not. It's taking everything from them. It's not taking anything away. If a news article says discriminatory, doesn't make it discriminatory. Please don't just follow the narrative of an article. Try to understand the basic facts. Tell them that, and see and judge by yourself. What is this discriminatory or not? So education, engagement is the first step to do.
Atul, and this is for everybody on the call here. I think we can all get passionate about hearing information from one side, and I think it behooves us all to actually research the issue from both sides, understand the argument from both sides, because without that, even if you are trying to pick a side, you will lose out because you haven't researched the material well. And thanks, Atul, for sharing your perspective today, your research. But everybody on the call, I still call on you to do your own research more from the sides of people who are saying that there is a discrimination, there is something wrong with this. So try to read their perspective too. It's human, as humans, we conveniently ignore a lot of facts from other side because they are just inconvenient for us. So let's try to do that.
That's always true. Do your own research. This is not saying that this is only information you have. You have all the topics and internet available, but don't forget to see the motivation of certain information that came from. Just by reading articles, you're reading somebody's opinion about it. You rather should go for the facts and truth within the article. If somebody writes an article, there are two ways to read that. One is whole narrative. Second is just look at the data points. And validating data points is also important and making sure that's what really happened. For example, they might say, oh, a particular person of certain community was killed in such a place in India during the CAA thing by a cop. They forgot to mention in the article that he was holding a bomb in his hand, and they tried to first convince him, and then he was ultimately taken down. But conveniently, they may ignore and say that, oh, just because he was community of certain member, he was taken down. They won't mention how many buses he burned before that. They won't mention how much damage he did, and what is he about to kill other people, what kind of danger he was to the society. It's an example. So any news article, anything you read, it's up to you to do research so that you know the facts and truth to the level you should be able to judge instead of just taking narrative of the writer.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And again, with the St. Paul City Council picking up this issue, and what they did this disservice to the community too, because they did not, as you said, did not hear, and they did not reach out to the other side of the community. They did the same basically mistake that I'm referring to here, that they listened to one side of the argument and they didn't care to find the other side of the argument. And you cannot have policies and healthy debates in a democracy if you just listen to one side. This was a bad thing to have, the uneducated and undemocratic thing to do on their part. And let's not do the same thing on our part. We should definitely defend the right things that are needed to be defending, not without knowledge, not without understanding other person's point of view though.
I think you made your point. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your questions and paving the way through here. And other people, thank you for giving me a chance and talking about it.